The vote this time around was unanimous. I thank you for voting with me. You know who you are. The vote has settled for Heidi forging straight ahead down the central corridor. We shall see how this plays out once more. Dangerous as it may be to forge ahead blindly, perhaps it is ultimately for the best. That is not to say that things are going to go easily, or well at all, for Heidi, though. Heidi's hand paused as she felt it close on the clasp to release her helmet. This was a bad idea, particularly with all the dust stirred up. She let go and looked around once more. She still had no idea where the fox and the rat had gone, but the sounds of pursuit were getting more distant. She could not afford to dither, and just chose to run ahead. To Heidi's credit, she almost skidded to a stop in time to avoid falling through the hole. Perhaps if the deck planking hadn't tilted up behind her, she might have stood a chance of avoiding the fall. Unfortunately, she slid down into the dark abyss, with much scrabbling for non-existent handholds. Her flashlight was of no help either, jabbing into her chest and providing no light whatsoever until gravity snatched her from the edge and dragged her far deeper into the ship. Heidi felt her stomach lurch from the sensation of freefall, closing her eyes in anticipation of the inevitable impact. It hurt, but it was nowhere near as large, nor massive, nor as final as she expected initially. The impact should have cracked bones. Instead, while she was gasping for air, as it had been violently expelled from her lungs, the pain soon faded. She opened her eyes as the feeling in her stomach stabilized, then started reversing again. Light filtered in from down below, partially blocked by the chunk of debris she'd just transferred her momentum to. It was the blue, twinkling lights of center space and its portals once more, and she saw the glittering portals in the far distance. Above her, the light revealed nothing but a dark hole. She drifted in a gaping wound in the ship, slowly returning to the gravitic center in cycles, with her stomach going up and down as she centered. A blinding light made it hard for her to see. It was her flashlight, gyrating wildly from the impact in the zero gravity. Its clip had broken in the impact and was floating not too far away in a garish shade of pink. She tried reaching for the useful portion of the device, but it was tantalizingly out of reach.
Arg!
Heidi growled. Then she paused and took a deep breath, wincing a little as her wind had not fully recovered.
Okay, you've trained for this, or something like this.
She could improvise. It would take time, but she was far from out. She had a magnet and string in her utility belt. It was bound to find some kind of purchase in this mess. As she was working that out, the piece of debris she had impacted earlier rocketed past her bubble helmet, briefly blocking the light from the flashlight. Heidi's whiskers tried to retract.
Oh, right. Dodgeball in 3 dimensions with jagged debris it is.
She hurried up with the magnet, managing to throw it away from her. She could hear it attached to something in the darkness with a satisfying clunk. Heidi immediately started pulling on the attached string. She'd rather not be here when that big piece of debris swung back. It was just as well. She could not see the debris the next time it passed. She felt it graze her side, though, as she pulled herself up to wherever the magnet had found purchase. As she scrambled, she felt her stomach lurch once more as the gravity seemed to normalize. That was a normal effect of damage in starships. Local gravity got strange, particularly if the grav plates were breached. It was not as though things were in that much better repair, though. The flashes from her still spinning light showed that this area had experienced heavy charring, characteristic of some thermal lance damage, or someone stupid enough to bring a flamethrower on board a starship. She appeared to be in one of the ship's long corridors. She pulled her magnet free of the conduit it had attached itself to by sliding it off. Heidi's breath fogged up her bubble helmet a little, only adding to the eerie ambience. The next task was to retrieve her flashlight. The strobing was getting extremely irritating and was certainly not helping Heidi's already rattled nerves. She readied her magnet to throw at the gyrating light. The case of the light had a small magnet on it, just in case something like this happened. Heidi wound up for the throw, tossing it underhanded. It didn't matter if that was slower. She'd rather be accurate than risk having to retrieve the magnet and waste yet more time on figuring out whatever it was attached to, even if she could retrieve it. The fox and the rat could be halfway across the ship by now. It was just as the magnet clunked onto the light that Heidi saw motion across the hull. A metal blur launched itself across the gap at the otter. Heidi only barely managed to avoid contact by ducking. A small feat in and of itself in the spacesuit. With a mechanical hiss, a roughly humanoid form skidded to a halt behind her, leaving sparks and deep scratches in its wake. Heidi took a moment to analyze, but only a moment. It was roughly the size of a person, but appeared to be little more than scrap metal and plastic endoskeleton. It had dropped into what Heidi could only assume was a fighting stance. The continued eerie flickering of the flashlight made it difficult to make out much more. There was a hint of intelligence about the way it moved. It was at that moment it pounced at the otter once more. Oh dear. How unfortunate. This could be the end of Heidi, or maybe not. Perhaps some good may yet come from Heidi's misadventure. For now, though, the time has come for you, as listeners, and myself, to make a story-based decision. There are now 3 main groups of characters in this adventure. Due to technical limitations, I can only cover one group at a time. Who should get the spotlight of my attentions next? Or should I keep the focus on Heidi? Each of these characters has a part yet to play in our unfolding drama, so who should I focus on? The otter and the robot? The fox and the rat? Or the engineer and the polar bear? Please vote in the poll down in the description. I bid you a good day.